Looks like we are live and cooking. No, I don't want you to put that on there.
Do you need some more?
All right, I want to encourage you, if you got some comments tonight, I want you to speak up, because people have told me we listen, but we can't hear what other people are saying. They said, could you give them a microphone? Well, we've got 4.
Hey, tell them to come and be here.
I'll let you tell them that, Mary Ann. I know you will. That's why we've only got 4, all right? Darren's not getting a microphone, okay? We might lose our license if we give Mary Brown a microphone.
We want to draw people, Mary.
Oh, it would draw some people, I promise. It'd be like a rodeo. Oh my, good to see y'all tonight. I'm glad for those who've joined us on Facebook Live, and probably there will be others. And we had a good Sunday, and looking forward to our Bible study tonight. So I'll go over our announcements pretty quickly, and then we'll get into our prayer and share time. I want to remind you, Sunday services at the Sunday School 10, morning worship at 11. And I'm going to preach about Zacchaeus Sunday. So I'm looking forward to that. Remind you of our afternoon groups. We have a divorce care that happened to be canceled last week because Brother Joel was gone out west for a wedding, but he's back now. Our grief support study group, and then our general Bible study. Brother Beetle leads that, and it's good. I hear great things from it. Remind you of our Wednesday activities. You're here, and tell people about it. And I'm kind of like you, Mary Ann. I wish more people would show. This coming Sunday is our Haitian student offerings. It's also Veterans Sunday. We're going to recognize and honor our veterans. I want to remind you, November the 23rd, that is a Tuesday night. That's our annual Thanksgiving praise and testimony service. And it says praise and meal, because I didn't have enough letters to put praise and testimony service and meal, or enough spaces, all right?
So the priority was meal.
Well, I put praise and meal, but didn't even have any little ends. I could put praise in meal, but it is what it is. If people show up at 6, I'll be happy. But anyway, well, if you feed them, they will come. I know that's true. I want to remind you, Trini and Tommy are getting married Sunday afternoon, the 21st at 2 o'clock here at the church. And I know,
They're doing the pound party, whatever.
I guess you'll just put it in bags and leave it out there. I promise I won't take anything. Yeah, that's a good idea. Thanks. See, it always needs a woman's touch. All right?
Amen.
Yeah. Well, I said it. You don't have to amen me. My goodness, it's a rough crowd tonight. All right. Any other announcements? By the way, I want to remind everyone, if you want to participate in the youth fundraiser, we didn't have a live auction this year, a pie auction. We didn't have one last year either. And these envelopes were a great idea. We usually raise about $5,000 at the youth pie auction and fundraiser. Just go by and grab an envelope or two and put a little bit of money in it and drop it in the plate, and it will be appreciated. All right, any other announcements?
We have the turkeys and the hams.
Thank you, Miss Helen. I should have thought to ask. We've got the turkey and the ham, the meat's provided for our Tuesday night service. So,
Everybody just did bread. Bread provided.
all right, turkey, ham, and bread. Brethren, let's stand for the benediction. Oh, me. Yep, bring something good to go with Thanksgiving. Some of y'all are going to start Thanksgiving the Sunday before, then Tuesday night, and then Thursday, and then perhaps the Sunday after. But remember, calories don't count from Halloween till after the Super Bowl. All right? Yeah, it's Saturday night. It's 6 o'clock, the 13th. It's also opening day of deer season. They do that every year on opening day of deer season. Hey, to some people that's important. Well, yeah, like one year at our local and our state association meeting, they were trying to plan the next meeting, and they voted on it every year instead of having a committee to plan it. And some guy went up to the microphone and said, "That's opening week of deer season," and that's back when you had 1 week of deer season in Arkansas. And one old preacher, he's kind of like Brother Gerald Mitchell. He just said what he thought. And he went up to the mic and he said, "Brethren, there are deer hunters and there are deer slayers." He said, "Deer slayers will kill their deer and be at this meeting." They had the meeting on the date that they planned on it. So be a deer hunter or a deer slayer. Make up your mind. All right, anything else? Let's look at our prayer list together, if we will. Just kind of going to go on those that are highlighted. If you need to update someone who's not, tell me and we'll do that. And if we need to add some people, we will. As always, pray for our law enforcement. I noticed pastoral staff and families first. Appreciate y'all's prayers. The Masters Builders are already working on a job. I noticed on Facebook. It's a small job, but pray for them. Excuse me, Tyler Franks could still use our prayers. Clem Tollett, I haven't got an update lately. Miss Marilyn was at church Sunday. Glad for that. She seems to be doing better. Keep praying for her. Keep praying for Charlie Washington. Lonnie Cantrell, haven't had an update, but just keep praying for Lonnie till they hear back. All right, and it's needed. Keep praying for Kirk and Christy and the boys. Their life has changed drastically. And if you think about them, you pray for them. Joanne Snodgrass, keep praying for Miss Joanne. Mary Hoosier, I get to talk to Mary pretty often, and she's doing good, and I know you'll keep praying for her. Carolyn Odom, keep praying for Miss Carolyn, just general health-wise. Sarah Snodgrass is recovering well from her surgery, and they did not have to do as extensive surgery as they had thought, so that was a good thing. Keep praying for Miss Merle. If you've never been through deep grief, you don't know, and most of you probably have, but it's an adjustment, especially when you're all of a sudden alone. And she just needs our prayers. I talked to Brother Hugh today. Brother Hugh's feeling a lot better, but he don't look very much better. That's his words. I haven't seen him. But, yeah, you keep praying for Brother Hugh to ill up. Yeah. He said he still got swelling and bruising on his face. But anyway, keep praying for Miss Nora Arnold. Don and Nora are both on there. Miss Nora is still battling complications from COVID. Jonelle and Austin Crawley, I talked to Austin yesterday. Both of them fell, and they're just not doing good at all. So if you think about them, you lift them up. Miss Joyce, and I'll give the update on her daughter Shelley. Shelley's surgery was a great success. The biggest prayer after the surgery, post-surgery, is pray that she doesn't have a stroke. And the doctor said he didn't think she would, but it is a risk when you have this surgery. So keep praying for them. I got a message from Anna Cheatham. Anna's exact words, "Please tell my church family thank you for praying." And she said, "You can take me off the list." She's doing well. Did somebody update Izzy Martin Sunday? Or am I just remembering wrong? Don't trust my memory, okay? Y'all wouldn't know it because Becky didn't notice it. But Sunday morning, I was having a bad time preaching. I was going to say something, and I couldn't think of it. I just couldn't think of it. And frankly, part of that is post-COVID. A lot of people have problems with that. And it could be that I'm getting older, but anyway, I don't know, how did I get off on that?
I didn't notice.
Well, I noticed it. I noticed it bad. Miss Vicky, procedure?
I mean, I'm good at surgery.
Okay,
So
but,
you take me off and then December I start radiation.
all right, we're going to keep praying for you.
Thank you.
I messaged Lee Ann about an update on Chuck. He was supposed to have his heart cath this week, but I don't remember what day it was. It was this morning. Have you heard anything? Well, I can't see my text messages now since I'm on Facebook Live, but if I find out when we close, I'll let you know. Keep praying for Jennifer Lovelace Chandler, and I'll just kind of tie in Mandy P., and you need to add Angela Long, her sister, both to the prayer list. I've kept up through Debbie messaging her. Both of them are doing well. Mandy's surgery went really well, and Angela was in a bad car accident, and so far she's doing fine. She had a bad car accident back in '95 and is still having recurring problems from that. So this kind of exacerbated the whole situation, but add Angela there too. Keep praying for Becky's brother, Jerry Humphreys. He's back in a rehab. Donna is still taking treatments. Tanya Washburn, any update? Anybody know anything? All right, there's several down here that are not highlighted. There are several families that we were asked to pray for. I noticed on Facebook, our church prayer group, Allie Parker had asked us to add Emily Anderson, and she is dealing with a brain bleed. So remember her. All right, Sue, anybody you need to mention that was added Sunday?
Sunday we added, Caitlin's mom,
David-Lyn,
Davis,
thank you.
and Mike Davis family,
The Mike Davis family.
and Virgie Lee family,
Yeah, her funeral is tomorrow.
and there was a Wheaton, and I didn't know who it was, all I got was Wheaton. I don't know who, it was. Somebody in the back.
Give me a minute. It'll come to me. It's Jonell and Austin Crawley's great grandson,
Oh, okay,
and his name is Wheaton Crawley,
okay,
and his dad is one of our preachers
okay,
down in South Arkansas. He's bivocational. He's an ag teacher and a preacher.
okay.
But anyway, Wheaton Crawley,
Bill Davis.
Bill Davis. All right.
Knew that stuff.
Yeah, I think Miss Virgie's service is. I know we've got two tomorrow, and it's tomorrow afternoon, I think, at 2:00 at the chapel. Anybody else we need to add, update, take off the list? I imagine Sue could use a little bit of help with some room.
What's going on with Larry Hacker?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard. I don't always get stuff.
Carol Buckmaster, they moved her to Grove.
Thank you. She's still on here, isn't she? I just missed her.
She's in a nursing home, baby.
Okay. Just bad.
She's not great.
Yeah. All right. She came to our grief class some, didn't she?
Yeah.
Hate to hear that.
Division Melissa Cardell, she's a few below, Donna Spears on the last column. We pray for her dad.
Okay, thank you. What about Stephen Hughes? He's on there.
Bill Charles said he went back to the hospital again. and
Okay.
his blood pressure, so.
Well, we'll highlight him then.
So you can take Audrey Spears off. She's right above Melissa.
I think if you need room, Sue, you can take Sherry and Pat Elkins off. That's my stepson's mother-in-law and grandmother-in-law, and both of them are having some health issues. But if you need room, you can. I'll remember to pray for them. Y'all can't remember to pray for everybody, neither can I. But sometimes take your prayer list when you're praying and pray for everybody on the first row. And then another night or day, pray for everybody on the second row, and you'll cover them. Anyone else? Yes, Gerald.
You don't care to put Royce Purcell back on there,
Royce Purcell, okay?
has cancer.
Okay. Anyone else?
You need room, Sue? You don't have room.
She's counting.
I'm good right now.
Okay. I don't know what this says, bring them on camera. Somebody answer, can you see me? I mean, I don't like to see me, but somebody answer. I'm gonna stay here till somebody answers. Get on your phone.
They said it.
Well, he said he can see me. He's looking at me. He's being a smart aleck. You forgot who said that, didn't you? Darren Jarrett said it. Good night. Come on. Okay, we're here. You can turn it off now. I wanted to know because people were saying, well, Melissa Sparks James said, yes, I can see you. J.C. Dobbs said, yes. I'm going to just talk to y'all. Y'all are more fun than the group I'm with. Oh, me. So far, y'all haven't started disrespecting me. And I know the next verb is, do you deserve it? All right? Yeah. That's one thing I like about y'all. I'll never run out of anything to preach about, I guarantee it. Once again, I don't know who put these, J. Vernon McGee, 2 volumes on his commentary on Romans, but I appreciate it. They were on my desk. That means they're mine, correct? But thank you. All right. All minds clear before we open the Bible to Romans 8.
Mention this, but don't forget about our senior baskets because, sorry that I'm having to do it early.
That's okay. I'm going to write that on my list. And for those of you who are listening on Facebook Live, every year we pass out Christmas baskets to our seniors. And I'm not one yet, all right? I want you to know that. But you better move back some. But anyway, there's a list on the table in the foyer, and we're doing 25 baskets, Sue? All right. So check off what you might bring. All minds clear before we pray? All right, I know y'all can see me. You quit answering now, all right? All right, let's get serious and go to the Lord in prayer before we open the Bible. I'm going to lead us tonight. Father, we thank you that we're your children and we have joy and we can laugh and enjoy one another's company. But Lord, it's serious when we're talking about people who have such great needs, and we don't even know a lot of these people, Lord, but somebody in our church family, our extended church family does, and we lift them up to you tonight, these we mentioned. Father, there are those that are recovering from sickness and illness and injury, and we pray you'd just touch their bodies and bless the medicine and the caregivers that are helping them. Lord, be with old people who are getting more feeble and lonely, Lord, and just give them encouragement and strength as you see fit. Father, bless these who've lost their loved ones and lift them up and give them comfort. Lord, let them know how near you can be in this great time of need. Father, be with Doyle and Carol. And Lord, we just pray for everyone in our church that's not feeling well, that you'll lift them up and give them grace and healing power. Bless our study tonight in Romans 8. And may we benefit from it, but may we be encouraged, Lord, because of your love for us. In Jesus' name, amen. If you didn't get a copy of the notes, it's called The Joys of the Spirit Life. And there are some laying on that back pew right back there. If you need one, raise your hand. And somebody will get it to you, all right? All right. We kind of got a running start at this last week. We didn't get very far, but that's okay. If it takes us a month or more than a month to finish this, only 14, 15, 16, and 17 are the verses that we're covering. But the spirit life is the subject, all right? I've said this over and over. Paul mentions the Holy Spirit more in this chapter than he did all of the previous 13 chapters before. And so it has to do with what the Spirit of God does for us before salvation, does for us in salvation, and does for us after salvation. We covered these verses last week in John, and two different passages, John 14 and John 16. But Jesus made it plain to his disciples that he had to go away. He had to go away to fulfill the Father's purpose for which he became flesh and dwelled among us. And that wasn't an afterthought with God. That was planned before he became flesh and dwelled among us, all right? So when he went away, he said, I'll send the Comforter, the one who comes alongside, the ever-abiding one, the helper. So many synonyms that describe the work and ministry of the Holy Spirit for us after we're saved. So we're looking at the Spirit's work in us, and I want to read these verses again. There are a few, but I just want you to think along these lines. Most of us in here were blessed to have been born into and raised in a pretty non-dysfunctional family. Now, I don't want to shed any ill light on anyone and anyone's family, but I want to remind you we all came from a dysfunctional family, all right? Adam and Eve, they rebelled against God. They disobeyed God. They brought death into the world by their sin, and they had 2 sons. And I had always said that the first death mentioned in the Scripture was when Cain slew Abel, but it wasn't. The first death in the Scripture is when God slew an innocent animal to make coverings for Adam and Eve's sin. So they learned about death, and they learned about the price of sin for that. So when Cain rebelled against God and what God had taught them about worship, and when he rebelled, there was a curse put on him after he sinned and murdered his brother. That's pretty dysfunctional, all right? You can talk about your dysfunctional family, but like I said, we've all come from one. But imagine someone who came from a very dysfunctional family. Someone who never knew any love. No one who was ever appreciated. No one who was ever encouraged or built up. And if you don't realize it, you see people who were raised that way every day. You may not know it because you may not see it in them, or they may not tell about it, but they exist. But imagine someone in that case, and then a rich, caring, loving man comes along and says, I want to bring you into my family. I want you to be my child. And this person legally adopts you. So we know and we understand about adoption. And so Paul uses this analogy, this picture of adoption to describe how we come into the family. By the way, I want to remind you that we are born into his family by the spiritual birth that is described in John chapter 3. All right? Except a man be born of the water and of the Spirit. All right? He won't see the kingdom of God. And Nicodemus he acted like he didn't fully grasp that. All right? But Jesus went into intricate detail about it later on. So people who are saved are born into God's family by a spiritual birth. But there is another view of it, and I want you to understand this is God's viewpoint. We become his children by spiritual birth, but from his vantage point, we have been adopted and placed into his family. All right? So I want to read these verses in Romans 8, and in a little while, if you want to find it in your Bible, mark it, we're going to turn over to Galatians chapter 4. And I talked about some of this last week, but I just didn't get enough of it. All right, so I'm gonna go back to I'm gonna talk mainly about verse 15, but let's look at Romans 8, 14 through 17. By the way, Dr. David Jeremiah is preaching through the book of Romans, or through Romans chapter 8. He says this is the greatest chapter in all the Bible. Well, that's his opinion, because other people have other opinions about what the greatest chapter in all the Bible is, but I would have a tendency to agree with him, all right? And by the way, you can find any answer to any need, any question you have in your spiritual life in Romans chapter 8. I want you to think about that, all right? If you need assurance, it's there. If you need hope, it's there. If you need forgiveness from sin, it's all there. Almost every question we deal with in our lives as God's children is answered there. So Romans 8, verse number 14. For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the children of God. We've already talked about the Spirit's work for us before salvation and in salvation. Except He draws us and we're called unto Him, we won't ever come to God. Verse 15, for you have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear. This is referring back to this parallel that he's showing between the sin life and the spirit life. And that's what we've been talking about prior weeks in Romans chapter 8. So you've not received the spirit of bondage again to cause you to fear. Isn't that joyful? We don't have to be afraid. We don't have to live in fear. Our world's crumbling all around us, but I'm not afraid. All right? I know how it ends. We're on the winning side. All right? We may go through some difficult times, but we're on the winning side. All right? You've not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but you have received the Spirit, capital S, Holy Spirit, of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. We talked about that. We'll come back to it. The Spirit Himself bears witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ, if so be that we suffer with Him, we may also be glorified together. Let me read to you tonight. I thought I had that marked. Galatians, Romans, Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians. It's there, I know. I thought I had it marked. Galatians 4, verses 1 through 7. So in this, Paul gives us some of the same information, but he expands on it just a little bit more. Now remember, the people that he wrote to in Galatia, a church had been established there. These people were believers, but someone had came to them and misled them by teaching heresy. And the heresy was, yes, you have to believe in Jesus Christ, but you've got to keep the law in order to stay saved. All right? So Paul is combating that when he writes this letter to the churches scattered throughout the regions of Galatia. All right? So he is driving home this point when he wrote to the Romans all over again. Now I say, the heir, as long as he is a child, differeth nothing from the servant, though he be Lord of all. All right? Imagine being born into the royal family, and you are the heir apparent to the throne. All right? When the king or the queen dies, you're moving up, okay? Yeah, you're moving up. That reminds me of an old TV show from the 70s, all right? But he said, as long as that person who is the heir is a child, he differs nothing. There's no difference between him and a servant. Now you got to understand, according to those laws, in order to reap the benefits of being an heir, you had to become of age. Now watch this. Under the Jewish system, if you were the eldest son, you received twice as much inheritance as the next one in line below you. All right? But he goes on and expands under this. This child, though he's the heir apparent, he is under tutors and governors. He has people ruling over him and teaching and training him until the time appointed by the Father. Even so we, now he's taking that analogy, even so we, when we were children, were in bondage under the elements of the world. So he's taking us back before salvation, all right? I love verse 4. But when the fullness of time was come. By the way, God never works on time. He works on timing. That means when God's timing was perfect. All right? When the fullness of God's timing was come, God sent forth His Son, made of a woman, just like it was promised to Eve. All right? made under the law to redeem them who were under the law. Why? That we might receive the adoption of sons. Now remember that contrast, the heir apparent? He has to grow up, he has to become of age, he has to be trained, he has to be tutored before he can enjoy into the benefits of being an heir, a blood heir. All right, but now he says, he redeemed us that we might receive the adoption of son. And because you are sons, God has sent forth the Spirit of his Son into your hearts. And here he says it again, crying, Abba, Father. Wherefore, you're not a servant, but a son. And if a son, then an heir of God through Christ. Now let's go back to the book of Romans again. Last week I gave you a list of a few things under the heading of we have a new father, and I want to go over those again, all right? The word adoption means to place as a son, all right? Remember, in the King James Bible, the female gender pronouns are not used, so when we use son, we can talk about God's children, all right? But the picture of adoption best describes what God does for us as a believer. In the old world, in the ancient world, the family was based on a Roman law, and the interpretation of what that law stated meant it was the father's power. Now remember, the Romans ruled the world. So the law gave the father absolute authority over the child as long as the father lived. He could make that child work as a servant. He could enslave that child and keep or sell him or her as he saw fit. He could even pronounce a death penalty on that child if it was his will. And regardless of the child's adult age, no matter how old they were, the father still held all the power over all personal and property rights. All right? That's a picture that Paul gave us in those verses from Galatians chapter 4. So now watch this. If someone adopted a child and placed them into their family, this word adoption means to place as an adult child, and it happened a lot because in that culture, as it is in many nations today, having a son is more important than having a daughter. And you can go to Oriental countries and see that's been proven, all right? So, but when a child was adopted, 3 legal steps were put in place. The adopted son was adopted permanently. Never go back, never renege, never say, I don't want you, I'm going to kick you out of my house, you're not my family anymore, I'm just going to make a servant out of you. They were placed in the family as an adult son. That means not waiting until the father said, okay, now you can have it, all right? They had all the rights and privileges of an adult child immediately, all right? And the adopted son completely lost all rights to the old family. So that meant that this person who was adopted became a new person, all right? And listen to this. As a new person, what if before you were adopted, you owed $50,000 to $100,000 in student loans? Gone. You're a new person, all right? Now you start thinking about the spiritual analogies to that, all right? What if you had obligations to people in other areas connected with the former family, your birth family, canceled, abolished, as if they never existed? Folks, listen, that's why the picture of adoption and being placed into God's family and viewed as adult children. We don't have to wait until the time he says, I believe I'll give it to you now. When we're adopted and placed into the family as adult children, we have all the rights and privileges as heirs of God, and joint heirs with Jesus Christ. Somebody tell me what you think heirs of God and joint heirs means. You ever thought about that?
Joint heirs is kind of like with Christ.
Joint heirs of God and joint heirs with Jesus Christ. That puts us on the same level with him as a son. Have you ever thought of that? Heirs of God, joint heirs with Jesus Christ. I'll tell you, I think a lot of us live below our means. Because, listen, and I know people, and maybe the Lord brought this to mind, it's not in my notes anywhere. But I know people who are living under the dark cloud of guilt of their past, and they'll never allow themselves to get over it and to get through it. And they need to understand that all those old debts that they brought into this relationship are abolished, done away. You couldn't pay for your sin debt anyway, but I know people who are still trying to. And it's like they beat themselves up spiritually and emotionally because it makes them feel better than what they felt when they did those things in their past. Well, listen, folks, we're children of God. We're heirs of God, and we're joint heirs with Jesus Christ.
Free of guilt.
Yes, should be.
Freedom.
Well, I want to hit verse 15. We've not received the spirit of bondage again, the fear of the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. We're no longer led about by the whims of the flesh. We can be led about by the Spirit. We don't have to live our lives in fear. And I want to say that I know people, and I've met people, and I talk to people, and they've been taught, just like those people at Galatia had been taught, yeah, I got saved, but man, I've just got to keep doing better, and I've got to do more because I've got to please God because, you know, my good's got to outweigh my bad. No, it doesn't. What was it the hymn writer said? Not of good that I could bring, only to thy cross I cling. Is that the way it was worded? That's all we got. You couldn't do enough. This idea, and it's not just an idea, it's a truth, that we're brought into such an intimate relationship with God. We're placed into his family as adult children with all the rights and privileges of adult children. In this phrase where he says, Abba, Father, I've heard so many different discussions and descriptions and understanding of that. Even I listened a little bit to Dr. Jeremiah, and he said he had changed his view on it, but I hadn't changed mine yet, all right? You can believe him if you want to. I respect him. He's a great Bible teacher, but those two words joined together, Abba, which it's a Latin word, but it's a derivative of a Hebrew saying, all right? It means my daddy, all right? I'll tell you, my dad lived to be 85. He's still my daddy, all right? I had the utmost respect for him. He wasn't perfect. He made some mistakes. He threatened to beat me when I was 35 with a boat paddle, and that was a grave misunderstanding, but I straightened it out really quick. But, you know, I still had the deepest, utmost respect. He wasn't perfect, but he was my daddy. And, you know, I watched him dwindle away due to dementia, and that hurt. But he's still my daddy. He didn't know who I was. He knew who Frank Broyles was. He knew who all of Frank's assistant coaches were that day, but he didn't know who I was. But it didn't change the fact that he was my daddy, all right? I could go to my dad even before dementia started taking its toll on him, and I could tell him anything. You know, my dad wasn't nearly as an affectionate person as my mom, but mom taught him how to be more. I think I said this at my mom's funeral, and my dad said it. Mom's the one that taught us how to say I love you and to show affection through touch. And some people's love language is physical touch, some are not. But I picture sometimes, and if this is too personal, I don't care. Sometimes I just assume that role as a small child. And I feel like I crawled up in God's lap. And he just put his arms around me. And I said, my daddy, that didn't take anything away from my respect for him as my father. All right? So there's this idea of intimacy with him. And if you don't have that intimacy, it's probably because you're dependent on yourself more than you are God, but I can't say that for sure. Intimacy and dependency, because you don't have to be afraid. The Spirit, don't have the spirit of bondage again to fear, but the spirit of adoption whereby we cry, Abba, Father. That doesn't take away anything for our respect, our reverence, our awe of God. But there's a sense that as our loving daddy, he'll never harm us. He loved us enough that he sent our joint heir to die for us. And he'll take care of us as we walk with him. Man, I love Romans. Sorry, I get a little preachy sometimes when I'm teaching it, but I sure love it. You know, it took me 48 years of ministry, about 47. We started over a year ago to tackle the book of Romans. Thank you all who joined us tonight on Facebook Live, and wish you could be here. And if you can, join us. We have a good time. I'm going to turn off the camera now, and we're going to dismiss in prayer.